These are the most infamous record covers of all time. Sometimes it was just bad timing, other times it was bad taste. Or maybe the band and the album were way ahead of their time. These are the stories behind the most controversial album covers of all time. The Mamas and the Papas, If You Can Believe Your Eyes and Ears, 1966.
Monday morning, it was all I hoped it would.
Everyone remembers this one for feel-good tunes like California Dreamin' and Monday Monday, but the original album cover caused more trouble than you'd ever guess, and all because of a toilet. You know the cover, the band sitting together in the bathtub, looking relaxed and happy. But if you look in the corner, oh my god, there it is. A plain old toilet, minding its own business. Dun dun dun. But back in 1966, that was considered downright improper for an album cover, and some stores refused to sell it. So the music label scrambled to fix things, rushing out versions where they either airbrushed the toilet out or covered it with the song list. I think the irony is, the music was as clean and wholesome as it could possibly be, but that one bit of bathroom realism made the cover one of the most collectible missteps in pop history. The Beatles, Yesterday and Today, 1966.
I have always thought that it's a crime.
The Beatles compilation album Yesterday and Today is instantly recognizable for launching some of the band's most significant mid-60s tracks in the American market. But its true notoriety stems from the image known simply as the Butcher cover. The photograph was intended by the Beatles as a surrealistic statement, potentially referencing the disillusionment with their own fame, or maybe as commentary on the way their music was being butchered into US-only compilations by Capitol Records. The image featured the four band members in white butcher smocks, adorned with raw meat and parts of dismembered dolls. It's pretty awesome. Of course, the composition was found by Capitol Records execs and retailers too to be extremely unsettling and in poor taste.
Hey Jude, don't be afraid.
The label's immediate reaction was one of panic. They recognized that displaying the cover would lead to a complete refusal to stock the album by major distributors. And so, in what became the most expensive recall in music history, Capitol immediately pulled nearly all 750,000 copies of the album, halting production entirely. The vast majority of these controversial covers were destroyed, or had a tamer alternative photograph known as the trunk cover pasted directly over the original. The expense and speed of this recall underscores the profound offense the image caused back in 1966, cementing the Butcher cover as the definitive high watermark of album art censorship in the rock and roll era. Prince, Lovesexy, 1988. Prince's Lovesexy from 1988, it might be remembered for that signature colorful Prince sound. Funky, spiritual, and full of late 80s energy. But its album cover gave record stores a real headache. The artwork showed Prince reclining nude inside a large flower, surrounded by soft light and color. It was meant to be artistic, almost heavenly, capturing the spiritual rebirth he was feeling at the time. But when the album hit shelves, major US retailers like Walmart and Kmart were anything but impressed. They called the image inappropriate and threatened to pull the album entirely unless something changed. And so the label rushed out a solution: a plain black slipcase that completely covered the original art. Fans in 1988 ended up buying their Lovesexy albums in mysterious, dark packaging, a sharp contrast to the bright, joyful music inside. Van Halen, 1984. If you were alive in the 80s, you know the album. It's got Jump, Panama, and the incredible synth riff on Hot for Teacher. It's a total classic, but the cover did cause quite a stir. Do you remember it? Well, here it is. It features this kind of creepy yet cool photo of a baby, or angel baby. The issue, if you can believe it, wasn't actually the baby, but it was what the baby was holding. In the original photo, the cherub is holding a pack of cigarettes with a lit cigarette in its little angel baby hands. Some conservative retailers and specific local markets just threw a fit, arguing that the image was inappropriate because it promoted smoking to minors and to angels. Anyway, as a result, later pressings of the cover were released where the cigarettes were airbrushed out entirely, making the cherub look like it's just making a weird hand gesture. Talk about an absurd reason to censor a rock album. Black Sabbath, Born Again, 1983. This album, marking the brief tenure of Deep Purple vocalist Ian Gillan with Black Sabbath, remains a significant entry in the band's history. Yet its artwork proved so unsettling that it generated controversy and retail obstacles independent of formal banning. And we're gonna keep with the baby theme here. The cover, painted by artist Steve Joel, features a grotesque, crimson-hued infant with demonic features. The image, which was meant to be striking and dark, was widely condemned by not just critics, but also by many of the band's own fans, who found it visually repulsive and poorly executed. While the artwork did not incur a universal government-mandated ban, its extreme and disturbing nature prompted several retail chains to object to its open display. This instance illustrates how retailer discretion and popular disgust, rather than legal ordinance, can lead to the commercial censorship of a product deemed too visually offensive for general public consumption. Three Dog Night, Hard Labor, 1974. The album Hard Labor, which marked a transitional phase for Three Dog Night, is remembered less for its musical content and far more for its unsettling and controversial sleeve. The original cover presented a surreal and highly graphic image, a humanoid puppet-like figure on an operating table surrounded by medical staff, actively giving birth to a vinyl record album. This literal and provocative depiction of an album's birth was widely deemed too disturbing and visually offensive for general public display. The resulting pushback from retailers and conservative consumers compelled the record company to quickly issue a modified version. The censorship was achieved by just placing a giant plastic bandage or band-aid directly over the most suggestive portion of the image. The subsequent pressings featured this large adhesive element printed directly onto the cover art, transforming the image into a visually censored product and cementing the original uncensored cover as a highly sought-after collectible. Alice Cooper, Love It to Death, 1971. Alice Cooper's Love It to Death from '71 gave us the timeless rocker I'm 18, the song that finally pushed Alice and his band into mainstream success. But the original album cover ended up in hot water over something so tiny, most people didn't even notice it. The photo shows the entire band in a moody theatrical pose, with Alice standing front and center, his long hair falling around him. So the issue was his hand, positioned with a thumb poking out from the front of his pants. You know, some people thought it looked too suggestive. To avoid trouble, Warner Brothers airbrushed out the thumb and reissued the cover almost immediately. It was one of those blink and you'll miss it moments that turned into a censorship scramble, proving that sometimes even an innocent, maybe not so innocent gesture can cause an uproar. And today, that first pressing, with the infamous thumb still intact, it's become a prized collector's item. It's a funny reminder of how cautious the industry could be in the early 1970s. Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy, 1973.
If there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed now.
Now this cover, it's awesome. The artwork is based on a famous fantasy novel by Arthur C. Clarke, and it features several very pale, nude people crawling up and posing on the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland. The photographer Aubrey Powell was going for an abstract, spiritual, and almost alien look, but all the record stores saw were a bunch of scandals. To make sure the album could actually be displayed and, sold without getting pulled, the US and the UK labels often shipped the copies with a dark paper strip or band wrapped around the middle cover. This paper band literally covered some of the problem, essentially censoring the image just enough to satisfy the major retail chains, while still preserving the dramatic, if covered up, and highly divisive art. Blind Faith, 1969. If you know rock history, you know this album was a huge deal. It was the debut of the original supergroup, featuring Eric Clapton and Steve Winwood. The music, pure genius. But the cover art caused such a scandal that the American market basically never saw it. The controversial image featured the main figure holding a model spaceship. The photographer Bob Seidman claimed the imagery was all about symbolism, the girl representing innocence and the spaceship representing the band's leap into the unknown. However, the American distributor for the album wasn't buying it. They were horrified by the idea of putting that photo on the shelves. So instead of trying to sell the original, they rushed out an entirely different version just for the US market, a simple black and white photo of the band. Lou Reed, Transformer, 1972. This landmark album, produced by David Bowie and Mick Ronson, launched Lou Reed's solo career and cemented his status as a progenitor of glam rock. But its groundbreaking aesthetic presented significant hurdles for mainstream distribution. The album cover featured a dramatically stylized, highly androgynous portrait of Lou Reed, presenting a gender-bending image that was both a celebration of the album's themes, including the hit Walk on the Wild Side, and a direct challenge to traditional norms.
Take a walk on the wild side. Oh, honey, you take a walk on the wild side.
While Transformer didn't face a formal widespread legal ban, its glam and bold presentation caused friction with certain parts of the retail sector. As documented in various music histories, smaller or more traditional retailers in particular often chose to quietly refuse to stock the album, fearing controversy or offending their local customer base. This, soft censorship, driven by moral discomfort rather than specific ordinance, severely limited the album's visibility and sales, demonstrating how cultural resistance could impede the commercial success of provocative art. David Bowie, Diamond Dogs, 1974.
Ziggy played for time, jiving us that we were voodoo.
This pivotal album is recognized as a transitional masterpiece, blending the glam rock of Ziggy Stardust with Bowie's emerging dystopian vision. But its cover became instantly notorious for its surrealistic and challenging artwork. The now iconic gatefold image depicted Bowie as a striking half-human, half-dog hybrid reclining on the street. While the front cover focused on Bowie's upper body, the gatefold contained the full image, which included the lower half of the hybrid, exhibiting characteristics interpreted by some as provocative.
Swishing in a tie and a tie, in a frock coat and bibbidi-bobbidi.
The ensuing censorship resulted in the lower portion of the hybrid being airbrushed and toned down. Original copies, though, that escaped this alteration are extremely rare and highly valued. Roger Waters, The Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking, 1984.
Spaces where
If you're a Pink Floyd fan, you know Roger Waters always goes deep and conceptual, and this was his first solo project after leaving the band. The album is super dense, telling the story of a man's anxiety in a dream, but the cover is what really got people talking, and not about the music. The controversial image features a model who is completely unclothed, casually posed by the side of the road with a backpack and her thumb out, ready to hitchhike.
back to the Black Hills again.
The entire vibe was meant to be dreamy and symbolic, fitting the album's theme. However, showing a completely unclothed woman on the cover in the mid-80s? Yeah, no. The label, sensing a major battle with conservative retailers, immediately chose to censor the image. The most common solution was just slapping a large black censor bar or sticker across the more private areas of the photo. So if you bought the album, you were getting a piece of art that was already pre-censored. The Cars, Candy-O, 1979. This album is a cornerstone of the new wave movement, featuring radio hits like Let's Go, but it remains equally memorable for its striking cover art that pushed the boundaries of mainstream packaging. The controversial image is a highly stylized airbrushed painting by renowned pinup artist Alberto Vargas, depicting the titular character Candy-O unclothed on top of a stylized automobile. While presented as a high art pinup, the overt nudity and mature themes caused immediate concerns among some record distributors. And so, to avoid having the album boycotted or placed behind display counters, certain major retailers insisted that the album be wrapped. Consequently, many copies of Candy-O were sold wrapped in a plain brown paper bag or a black plastic sleeve. This requirement highlights the ongoing tension between artistic expression and commercial accessibility during the late 1970s and early 80s. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, 1987. Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction needs no introduction. It's the album packed with Sweet Child of Mine, Welcome to the Jungle, and Paradise City. It became one of the biggest debut records ever, but its first cover caused such a stir that it had to be changed almost immediately. The original artwork, painted by artist Robert Williams, showed a wild, surreal scene with a robot, a menacing figure, and a woman on the ground. It was meant to symbolize the chaos and danger behind the album's title. I mean, the band saw it as art, reflecting shock and rebellion, but most retailers didn't see it that way. Big stores like Kmart and Walmart flat out refused to carry it, calling the image too graphic and disturbing for display. And so the original art was pulled, and it was replaced with the now famous Celtic cross featuring skull portraits of the band. That new design became one of rock's most recognizable covers, but those rare early copies with the Robert Williams painting are now collector's treasures. Reminders of when Guns N' Roses really did live up to the word destruction. The Who Sell Out, 1967.
Let's have a smile for an old engine driver.
This concept album is a groundbreaking piece of pop art rock, celebrated for integrating fake commercial jingles and advertisements between tracks, culminating in the iconic hit I Can See for Miles. Its controversial element arose not from explicit content, but from its direct commercial satire.
I can see for miles and miles and miles.
The original sleeve was designed to mimic an actual advertising campaign, featuring humorous photos of the band endorsing fictional products. The most notable image, photographed by David Montgomery, showed guitarist Pete Townshend posing in a towel with a massive can of Odor Oh No deodorant. While the ads were clearly satirical, some distributors and label executives expressed significant legal concern over the potential for copyright infringement. The commercial nervousness, rather than moral objection, led to a minor retail pullback. To mitigate the perceived financial risk, the band and label were forced to issue statements confirming the satirical intent, and in some cases modify the campaign to avoid litigation, illustrating the unique challenges faced when artists blur the lines between art and advertising. The Velvet Underground, live at Max's Kansas City, 1972.
You know there's even some evil motherfuckers. They'll tell you life's just made out of dirt.
If you're a music history buff, you know this album is a classic snapshot of the Velvet Underground's final days. Recorded right in the heart of the legendary downtown New York scene. But the original packaging had a little too much downtown flavor for the suburbs. The very early pressings of the album included some raw, unfiltered photographs taken inside the famous Max's Kansas City club. These photos showed the gritty, sometimes messy reality of the New York nightlife scene. Think casual drug use, rough-looking patrons, and a general air of sleaze that was a total contrast to the polished world of pop.
Guess that I just don't know. Ooh, guess that I just don't know.
Atlantic Records was seriously worried about this. The story is that distributors were throwing a fit, telling the label they absolutely did not want that kind of New York sleaze displayed in their clean, family-friendly suburban record stores. And so, Atlantic quickly pulled the photos from the album sleeve and replaced them with tamer, less controversial imagery. And so, if you can find one of those early pressings, you got a rare look at the raw documentation the label was trying to hide. The Jimi Hendrix Experience, Electric Ladyland, 1968. This album is the absolute peak of Hendrix's genius, featuring classic, sprawling tracks like Voodoo Child and a legendary cover of All Along the Watchtower. But when the record came out in the UK, the cover created a massive stir that Jimi himself absolutely hated. The notorious UK gatefold cover featured a photo of about 19 completely unclothed women sitting together with the whole group holding a very long cable. The photographer claimed the image was intended to be a tribute to the album's title, suggesting the women were Hendrix's electric ladies.
The wind cries.
However, the US label and Hendrix himself were furious. Jimi had originally wanted a simple, warm photo of the band or a cool childhood picture. And he also felt the nude photo was distracting and also disrespectful. Because the US market was so conservative, the American version of the album immediately replaced the nude photo with a much tamer, psychedelic, reddish photo of Hendrix's face. So yeah, the one we all know today. The Rolling Stones, Beggar's Banquet, 1968.
Get no satisfaction 'cause I tried.
This album is one of the Rolling Stones' most acclaimed works, known for its return to raw, blues-infused rock, with tracks like Sympathy for the Devil and Street Fightin' Man. Yet, its original artistic direction resulted in a significant delay and forced censorship. The intended cover for the album was a photograph of a dirty, graffiti-covered public restroom wall, with the album title and the band name scrawled onto it as if done by a casual visitor. You know when you're going pee with a magic marker. The band, particularly Mick Jagger, insisted that this gritty, provocative image perfectly captured the raw, decadent, and rebellious spirit of their music. However, the band's record company, Decca London Records, flatly rejected the artwork, deeming it vulgar and commercially unacceptable. The label feared that major distributors and retailers would refuse to stock an album featuring a toilet, potentially crippling sales. The dispute between the band and the label lasted nearly 6 months, resulting in the album finally being released with a completely different, much tamer cover, something that resembled a formal white wedding invitation. This highly visible conflict became a major cultural talking point, underscoring the battle between artistic autonomy and corporate market standards in the late 60s. John Lennon and Yoko Ono, Unfinished Music No. 1, Two Virgins, 1968.
Darling, stand by me. Oh.
This experimental album, while not a commercial success, remains a monumental artifact in music history, primarily due to the cover, which served as a provocative declaration of artistic and personal freedom. The controversial sleeve featured stark, full-frontal photographs of both John Lennon and Yoko Ono standing completely nude. This image was taken at Lennon's home and was intended to dispel the mystery surrounding the couple, now presenting them with total transparency. However, in 1968, the level of explicit nudity was widely deemed obscene, and consequently, EMI, the Beatles label, flatly refused to distribute them. To circumvent obscenity laws and secure distribution through independent labels in the US and the UK, the album was mandatorily packaged in a plain brown paper bag. John Lennon and Yoko Ono sure knew how to bear it all. Alright, there they are. It's kind of funny now to think about how a simple album cover could cause such a stir, but that was part of the magic. Music felt daring, unpredictable, and alive. So, which of these covers do you remember hearing about? Do you actually have one of the original pressings from one of these banned covers? And did I forget a racy album cover that got banned? Well, please get down in the comments section and tell me anything about the albums I mentioned and any banned album I forgot. If you enjoyed our racy video, please hit the thumbs up icon, it really helps our channel a ton. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a memory. But most importantly, from my entire team here at Do You Remember, thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful censor-free day.